Hi everybody, welcome to your first video, and we will talk about l'imaginaire and then specifically the Gothic. Okay, so here we go. Now, Gothic originally describes the architectural excess of Gothic style. There was a style that was called Gothic, and from that they developed the Gothic literature. And Gothic refers to horror and terror, and to what is fantastic and wild and nightmarish or magical. The word Gothic can be used to describe sublime, desolate landscapes, for example the Alps, but it mainly refers to events. So there can be violence, mystery, and to atmosphere. Something that is gloomy, sad, or a threat, something that is threatening you. Behavior, something or someone who is cruel. And values, social and sexual transgression. The Gothic influence can be found in many poems, but it's mostly found in the Gothic novel, which is a genre that appeared in England towards the end of the 18th century. And it shows influence of sentimentalism out of Rousseau, and it is actually a reaction against the rationality of Locke, since Locke was a rational writer. The Gothic was sort of rebellistic reaction to this rationality. And the numerous novels written in the last 2 decades of the 18th century, they center upon sensitive heroines and their fears, and in old castles and abbeys, dark tunnels and labyrinths and ghosts and skeletons and bandits and evil relatives. So it was very much a literature for women, because the heroines were women, and because there were more and more feminine readers at this time. And it was also written by women, because very much knowledge was needed of society to write such books. At this time, when you wrote a book, it was important that you had a lot of knowledge. But in this genre, that wasn't needed, so a lot of that appealed to a lot of women. For example, to the right here, you can see Anne Radcliffe. She was a writer, and she wrote, among others, The Mysteries of Udolpho in 1794. And at the end of this century, because there was an influence from the German Romanticism, the Gothic novels, they became much darker and much more violent. You have an example here. It's a writer, his name was Matthew Gregory Lewis, and he wrote, among others, a book, The Monk, in 1796. But as you can see here, a film was made from this not long ago, and the lead role was Vincent Cassel. Some writers actually made fun of the Gothic genre. For example, Jane Austen, she wrote a novel in 1818, Northanger Abbey. And that's an amusing parody of Gothic novels. Catherine is the heroine. She has read too many Gothic novels, and then she interprets the world around her as if she were a character in such a novel. Now, Gothic novels, they remain popular throughout all the 19th century, but their nature changed a little bit, and the villains, they were no longer wicked uncles, but they were mad scientists and criminals. And you probably have heard of these writers. Also in the 19th century, we start by Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which is about a student of natural philosophy, and he decides to create a human being, but he makes a mistake and he constructs a monster instead. And then you have R.L. Stevenson, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which is about a doctor, and he finds a drug which allows him to become 2 different personalities. One is evil and one is nice. And then to the right you have Oscar Wilde, The Picture of Dorian Gray. which is about a young man who is keeping his beauty as he grows old, but his portrait becomes hideous and it shows the corruption of his soul. And then finally, you have surely heard of Bram Stoker's Dracula. I'm not going to say too much, I think you know already, but it relates to two young women who's trying to escape from Count Dracula, and Count Dracula, he is a vampire. And now we will continue with the 20th century. Here you can see an image from a film, The House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. Now in the 20th century, the Gothic genre, it was still popular, but it changed a little bit. Some forms were added, like science fiction and horror tales, various kinds of literature of the fantastic. Then you have the magic realism, that combines realism with fantasy, and this genre has become very, very successful in the cinema. In this new time, now we're looking at the 20th century, there were no old abbeys and haunted castles anymore in this new world. So the Gothic fiction had to find another way to scare people. And the Gothic fiction, it became more psychological, and the threat, it came from the inside rather than the outside. And this is Edgar Allan Poe, an American writer. He didn't write about devils and vampires. He explored the paranormal phenomena, and he wrote about obsessions, delirium and madness. And we will finish off by a subgenre to Gothic, which is called the Southern Gothic in the United States. And this is one of the writers. His name is William Faulkner, very famous. He has won the Nobel Prize and also the Pulitzer Prize. And last one out is a woman, Flannery O'Connor. She was a writer and essayist, and she was also a part of the Southern Gothic. I will put some works by her and William Faulkner on the next page. And some works by Faulkner and O'Connor. O'Connor, you have Wise Blood, The Violent Bear It Away, and A Good Man is Hard to Find. And Faulkner, As I Lay Dying, The Sound and the Fury, and Light in August. And their fiction is full of misfits and grotesque characters, and they symbolize the decay of Southern culture. And we've come to the end of this introduction to Gothic literature. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and if you have any ideas of how the videos could be better, don't be afraid to tell me, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye!